Key Arena, and it's not great news for the Sonics. 78% say the Sonics ought to leave town. Only 12% say we ought to fund a big makeover for Key Arena. Does that give you pause as you're in those negotiations that this city doesn't seem to be supportive of that?
That was not a surprise to me at all. I go around and I talk to a lot of folks, in fact, around my family dinner table, and I know it is not a very
Even some Nichols
popular,
people don't want the Sonics
absolutely.
here?
I hear it. No, it's not that they don't want the Sonics here. It's that they feel that 10 years ago, significant investment was made in the Key Arena to make it work, and they don't understand why that significant investment doesn't continue to work for the team. Again, the lease is good through 2010. In 2010, if they leave, I've still got a mortgage to pay off at the Key Arena, and I've got a big hole in terms of the people who now go to and enjoy the Seattle Center and provide revenues for the Seattle Center. I hope that there's a win-win here, that the city gets to keep the team in Seattle. I think that's a positive thing. I hope the team has a facility that works well for them, and I hope that we have a lease that allows the Seattle Center to benefit from having the Sonics at Key Arena.
The lease is really the subject of this referendum, which is now gaining signatures to say, hey, if there's any public money that's put into this, we ought to get a return on our investment. That is to say, the taxpayers, and they're saying the return ought to be reasonable, to be something like the going rate for a Treasury bond, if you will. What's your reaction to that? Should the city kind of gauge its investment in this based on some regular, understandable rate of return that people can peg it to?
I don't think so. I have said if there is a significant public investment to rebuild the Key Arena, that ought to go to a public vote. That decision should be made by the voters. If we have a very modest improvement, maybe that's something that we don't need to take to the voters. But at a certain level, they ought to make the decision whether it's a good investment or not. So I don't think that the initiative really helps to clarify that. I do believe that there is benefit for us having professional sports, for us having a very active arts and cultural life, and it's pretty hard to give a dollars and cents rate of return argument behind that. But I would suggest to you there are an awful lot of jobs at the Key Arena, in the neighborhood of Uptown, and at restaurants and bars and people who visit our city from other parts of the state and other parts of the Northwest specifically to come, and part of that visit being a Sonics game or a Mariners game or an opera, and that we benefit from that by having a very vibrant and healthy visitor and convention business, and we enjoy it as residents here as well.
Back to the phones. Lillian is on the line from Tukwila. Welcome to our program.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mayor. I think you're doing a good job for what they give you.
Thank you. I think.
I'm looking at this paper, this flyer from the Washington State Lottery, and it says on this little pie right here, it says State Government Education Funds, 19%. How much of that can be used to keep these schools from being closed? Where is this money? I mean, it's more important that we have schools open and children going to school than it is whether the Sonics can stay here. I'm sorry.
Well, I would absolutely agree with you, and that's why we've said that if there is any new investment in the Key Arena, it needs to come from visitor fees, so that a part of what they spend when they come here is reinvested in the facility, and part of it then is available for schools and police and fire and all the other things that we need to do. The issue of school closure in Seattle obviously is a real sensitive one, and I don't know if in Tukwila you're facing anything similar, but the Seattle School District was built in the buildings that they now operate for about 100,000 kids, and today we've got about 45,000 kids. So the choice that the school board is having to make is a little bit different, and I think we need to cut them a little bit of slack in having to make these really hard decisions. And that is, do they put the money into boilers and keeping the lights on in these buildings that have many fewer kids than they were built to hold? Or do they close some of those buildings and have that money go into the classroom so that the experience in the classroom is better? Smaller class sizes, more music teachers, more more of the things that we think will provide a high quality of education. That's the fundamental decision the school board is faced with. They have a structural deficit in their budget that they have to get on top of, and part of that is going to be closing some of the buildings so that they have money to invest in the quality education.
Are you basically supportive of this list that came out, the closure list, which includes, I believe, 9 schools now that the superintendent's agreed with?
The specific schools and package CR, I don't have the kind of information that the superintendent and the school board are working from, or that the Citizen Advisory Committee. I've been briefed on it. I think they did a good job. A year ago, they came out with a plan that I did not support, and the reason I didn't support that was that academic quality wasn't one of the criteria. And it seems to me that that's the primary criteria when you're talking about whether or not to close a school. So I applaud the process they've gone through. I support the decisions they have to make. I haven't taken a position on individual pieces of the plan.
An emailer writes, Valerie, we have tried to engage the mayor at numerous junctures to understand our concerns. What has caused the mayor to finally pause and pay heed to the details of Fire Station 20? This is, of course, up in Queen Anne. And the concerns of the neighborhood and the city council. What can we expect exactly to be accomplished with this delay? What does find a compromise, which I guess is your language, mean? Well, where are you at in Fire Station 20?
Well, there are difficult decisions with many of the fire stations. One of the first ones was in Ravenna, where the current site can't really be made to work for a modern fire station. It's got a great historic building, can't expand it, can't really make it work. So we proposed a new site that is in exactly the right place to serve that district that they patrol. And we got a lot of flack for that because we were displacing a balloon shop and an auto repair shop. In this case, the fire station on Queen Anne, on the west slope of Queen Anne, is in the right place to serve its district. But it isn't large enough and needs to be expanded. And therefore, we have to condemn some pieces of property adjacent.
I think 3 single-family homes.
3 single-family homes. So what we're going to look at is whether we could reduce that to 2, and I can't tell you today that we can, and go up higher in the building. It'll be a building.
That's the compromise, maybe.
That's right. There is a certain capacity you need there for the equipment and for the human beings who, are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to protect our neighborhoods. And we won't compromise on that. But we're going to look at whether we can skinny it up and make it a little bit higher, and whether that's something the neighborhood thinks is...
How many, if you were to do that, how many houses would that save?
That would save one of the 3,
okay.
I think.
Okay.
And again, I don't know, I can't say that it will save one. I don't know that we can make that work.
But it sounds like you're willing to look at this.
That's what we're trying to look at, yeah.
Back to the phones. John, I believe, is on the line. Welcome to our program.
Yes.
Hello.
This is John from Kent. Question for you, Mayor. What's the last Sonics basketball game you attended?
I didn't get to one this season. I did get to a couple last season. I got to opening day, which I think we lost, and I got to one late in the season.
Are you one of those 73% that doesn't want them?
I do want them. I think that they add to our community. I'm much more of a baseball fan. I am a season ticket holder at the Mariners, so I kind of choose which events I go to. I think the Sonics are great. I think the Seahawks add to the mix. The Storm. I think they all help to make this an exciting, dynamic city. And again, not at any price, but at a reasonable, modest investment, I think it makes sense for us to keep them.
Thanks, John. A emailer writes, Nick from the U District, I keep reading the mayor is trying to shut down the Blue Moon Tavern. I'm extremely upset about this. Please, Mr. Dickles, don't drive away the last great piece of Seattle culture. And if people read the weekly, they will notice that that's the cover story this week.
I am not trying to close the Blue Moon. I'm not at war with the Blue Moon. Our city attorney has some issues with the Blue Moon that he's expressed pretty publicly, and he is not supporting renewal of their liquor license. We have a process where the city attorney, the police chief, and I take a look at these applications for renewal of liquor licenses, and we decide how the city is going to be positioned going forward. The city attorney's one voice in that conversation.
Well, are you supporting renewal of their liquor license?
I haven't seen the data that has concerned the city attorney to the extent that he's called for that liquor license not to be renewed.
So I assume you win if you're mayor, but do you? I mean, if the city attorney doesn't want the liquor license renewed, and
well, he's a separately elected official. He has every right to his own opinion. We're going to have a conversation about it. We're going to bring the chief into that conversation, and we'll see where we go from there.
And whose ultimate decision is it?
It's ultimately the liquor board, not the city's, but we have input into that.
When will that decision be made?
I don't know. I don't know what the schedule is for that. I have, in a couple of cases, asked for liquor licenses to be pulled. They were in the case of a bar in Pioneer Square, club in Pioneer Square, and another one up near the Seattle Center in the Uptown neighborhood, where we'd had repeated violent activity within the clubs and outside the clubs. And in both cases, those liquor licenses were suspended. And at least in one case, that club will never reopen under that ownership.
But it doesn't sound like you are on the same page with the city attorney.
Again, I haven't seen the information, the data that concerns him so much. My perception is that the issue at the Blue Moon is not around violence. We are not seeing shootings, we're not seeing stabbings and that kind of thing. And that's really what I've been focused on in terms of violence in some of these clubs.
So what do you do to something like the Blue Moon?
Well, it seems to me that you do want to make sure that if there are other issues, that those are being dealt with by the ownership in a responsible fashion.
Dear Mayor Nichols, writes Jeff, recently I read that the City Council Transportation Committee requested a cost estimate for a 4-lane tunnel instead of the 6-lane tunnel that you're pushing. Initial estimates indicate this option may save up to $1 billion. Could we finally move from discussion into action if the 4-lane tunnel option is approved?
The City Council's asked for that, or some members of the City Council have asked for that. It was studied in the early part of the process, so that information will be provided to them by the State Department of Transportation. What people should know is that that's a pretty significant decrease in capacity. The capacity that we have right now in the viaduct is based on 6 lanes, 3 in each direction. And obviously serve that the Fund Forest now provides some outlet for. I'd like to do it with technology that engages people's minds and bodies and in social activities. And we're talking to some of the tech people around the city about how we might do something really unique there.
Another topic, the charter of the City of Seattle. The council is considering amending it. They say that the department heads, the so-called cabinet, folks that run the fire department, the police department, all the rest, should be subject to council reconfirmation is the jargon here. Every 4 years. So they ought to come before the council and kind of, make their case, prove that they deserve another 4 years. Why shouldn't that be the case? Why shouldn't the council have that power? You have so far resisted it and said it's a bad idea.
I actually haven't commented on the idea. I have commented on the process, because the process has been a fairly closed one with a council committee that meets on Friday afternoons without an awful lot of public scrutiny or involvement. And what I suggested is, if you're dealing with the Constitution for the City of Seattle, maybe it should just be insiders on the council doing that. Maybe we should involve groups like the Municipal League and the League of Women Voters and citizens who are interested in their city government. Maybe it ought to be a more transparent process. That's what I've said. I think that there are pluses and minuses. I think it's...
I mean, what's the downside?
The downside is that the department heads get confused as to who the boss is. I go before the voters every 4 years, and I'm accountable to the voters. Today, those department heads are accountable to me. If they are not doing the job, I fire them. If they're doing the job, I keep them, and I give them direction, and I give them support in doing that job. I think that it is possible, I'm sure that this council wouldn't do it, but it's possible that a future council could play games with that. They could use the department head as a scapegoat because there have been unpopular things happening. For instance, there's been some criticism of the park superintendent for things going on at Magnuson Park, or things going on at the zoo, or things going on at other parks, where a local group is unhappy with the decision that's been made. Well, it turns out that none of those decisions that have been made without the council's fingerprints on them. The council adopting a Magnuson Park plan, the council adopting a plan for Loyal Heights School, the council adopting a plan for the zoo. But it's easy for them to say, it's the park superintendent, so when we get a chance, we're going to fire him. I think that plays games, potentially, in the quality of government that we have.
Back to the phones. We have line 1. You're on the air with the mayor, rather.
Hello?
Yes. Hello. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I actually changed my question, but my question actually would be, far as prostitution on the streets of Seattle. What is it that you are looking at as far as implementing a solution into funneling money into services to get the women off of the streets and into programs, as far as rehabilitation programs and therapy and different things like that?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, we're working with a number of neighborhoods that have had problems with prostitution on the streets. And it really is an attempt to try and reclaim those streets and make sure that people who are walking down the street aren't approached by potential customers and because they assume that they're talking to someone who is in prostitution. We're trying to make those neighborhoods very livable places, safe places, and we do not tolerate prostitution. That's a complex issue. It's existed for an awful long time. And so women who are involved in that prostitution, men who are seeking the services of a prostitute, we target those with enforcement practices to discourage it. Now, if a person wants to get out of that business and wants some help to reestablish their life, there are services available, and we'd be very happy to work to try and connect them with a more positive way to make a living, find decent housing, and get out of that trade.
Zoe writes, Dear Mayor, I've recently noticed that there are few, if any, recycling containers at many of the city parks. I've not made a close study, but a picnic area near Green Lake had none, nor did Camp Long.
I know we are trying to provide them, and I will be meeting with the park superintendent, who currently reports to me, and asking what we're doing in those specific parks.
The Wawona down in South Lake Union Park, that's the subject of this next emailer, yes. Daniela. I heard at Folk Life that the beautiful old wooden schooner, the Wawona, was considered an eyesore by the city and was in danger of being disassembled and removed from South Lake Union. Please do your part to retain this essential part of our history for this generation and for future ones.
This is Daniela?
Daniela.
I'm not going to be able to give her good news. The Wawona, which is a historic ship, unfortunately is not beautiful and it's not safe. It has been tied up at South Lake Union for many, many, many years. There's a nonprofit organization that has worked very hard to try and restore it. They haven't been able to raise anything near the kind of money to be able to keep it safe. And very frankly, unless they're able to come up with that money very soon, just out of concern of safety, we've already had them take the masts off because a study showed that those were in real danger of potentially coming down and hurting people. So, we're not looking for that to be a permanent part of the park unless it's restored. And given the last 20 years of experience, we don't think that they're going to have the capacity to restore it.
Time for one more emailer. Sam writes, Dear Mayor Nichols, with the shortage of funds, I fully understand that enforcement of the city's do not block the intersection has a low priority. However, by not enforcing it, the city's missing a real opportunity not only to increase revenues through the collection of fines, but also decrease congestion. The do not block intersection ordinance. What's happening?
Well, we do enforce that. It is on the books. We discourage people from blocking the box, as it's called, because it does make a real difference in our ability to move people during those peak hours. We don't have all the people that we'd like to be able to throw at that problem because there are other higher priority assignments that they're involved in, but if they're observed doing that, they will get a ticket. And it's a pretty hefty ticket.
I think it's $101 or so, the emailer says.
Yeah.
His concern is Denny Way and Broad especially.
Yeah, and there are others as well. One of the things that we're looking at as a technology right now is the red light cameras, which I think will help us at some of the key intersections, make them safer. And if that technology works for that application, it may be that it would work for this application later.
Do we yet have those cameras up and running? These take pictures, in effect, of intersection
They
blockers
do.
and send you out a ticket?
I believe that we're going to be installing those in the next few weeks, and there'll be an announcement about that.
And then you'll get a ticket mailed to you.
You'll get a ticket mailed to you, and we'll over time see how effective that is. And again, potentially it could be, that technology could be used for other infractions as well.
We have to close. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
We will see you next month, and we will see you all next month. If you have a question, you want to email us, go to our website, seattlechannel.org. And with that, we wrap. We'll see you in July. Take care.
And nobody knew nothing.
I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me what the problem. What's the problem with the signs?
I have signs. I need signs in my neighborhood to slow the speeders down.
Okay. What's your cross street?
My cross street is 100th and Aurora.
Okay. I will be talking with my staff tomorrow, and we'll get on that.
And I have one more question for you. We have cameras out here on the north end, right up on 100th and Aurora.
Okay.
These cameras been out here for 9 years, and these cameras do not work. Now that's a waste of Seattle's taxpayers' money.
Traffic cameras at 100th and Aurora?
Yes. And they're right down in a section where it's a drug area, and these cameras are on the pole. They have been there for 9 years, and these cameras do not work because every morning, same thing. Prostitution, drug activity. I had to walk my girlfriend out here at 5 o'clock in the morning, and this is nonsense. These guys come up, they approach her, they approach me. I had to defend her, I had to defend myself. There's no police around. When we need police there, there's nobody there.
Okay. Well, Tony, thank you for your call.
Yeah. I will talk with my staff about the signs in your neighborhood and see what happened, if the ball got dropped, why, and get it fixed.
Another call from North Seattle. Addie is on the line. Addie, welcome.
Well, this is Abby's dad, George.
Oh, well, welcome to you.
Thank you. Mayor, I've got a question. What is the city doing about the panhandlers around town? It seems like it's not exclusive to the downtown area, and in like our in Ravenna and various neighbors. You get off the freeway. I mean, what are the laws, and what is the city doing about this?
Well, there is a law against aggressive panhandling. So if a person is obnoxious, if they're threatening, if you feel intimidated, then there is a law that deals with that. There is not a law against panhandling per se. And I think one of the things that we need to do as a community is start to talk about how is it that we can meet the needs of the folks who find themselves panhandling, the very basic human needs of food and shelter, and do it in a way that doesn't encourage panhandling. You know, a lot of people give out of the goodness of their heart. There probably are better ways. In the University District, we've been using something called giving meters, where you can make the same contribution, but it goes to a service agency in the University District that works with the homeless youth who are in that neighborhood. And we're going to be encouraging more of that kind of activity rather than people giving cash to somebody on the street, and encourage them to go into that activity. Maybe we can get them involved in these services and ultimately reconnect them to housing and the community itself.
On this topic, you convened a task force about looking at downtown parks, making them more safe, more inviting. One of the proposals, a draft is now out for public comment. One of the proposals is to have park rangers, Smokey the Bear type folks that walk through the park. They're unarmed, meant to be friendly, but could, I think, actually issue park exclusion ordinances, and certainly they would be in radio contact with police. Is that the first step in making parks uncomfortable to the homeless? I mean, on the flip side, this gentleman's question: are you going to drive out the homeless from parks, and is that your intention?
No. What we want to make our parks is inviting to all. We do not want a park to be dominated by a group of men drinking cheap alcohol. We don't want the parks to become a place where people congregate and intimidate other people from being able to use our parks. And that has occurred in a number of our park areas. We don't want it to become a hangout for people who are dealing drugs. We want it to be a place that's welcoming to the entire community. That means people who are at the low end of the economic scale, the middle of the economic scale, and the high end. We want it to be a mixing place. But what we have allowed to happen are behaviors, I think, that crowd out legitimate park users. We saw that at the 3rd and Bell Park, and we changed the uses there. We put in a off-leash area, and now it's used by not only the canine friend, but a lot more people than previously, because it's a place where there's positive activity going on. And we're going to look park by park throughout downtown and figure out how we do that. Parks have to be available for people of low income or no income. It's the only recreational space they have. The problem comes when the behaviors that drive people away and make them feel unsafe occur.
This task force report is just that, a report. It's throwing out ideas. But this park ranger concept, you sympathetic to that?
Well, you know, I asked this group to advise me on how we reactivate these parks. Freeway Park, which is a real jewel. People avoid it or have been avoiding it. They're starting to come back now because they're starting to feel safe. Some of the pieces of it are controversial. We've had to remove some of the bushes and some of the trees that blocked the view and therefore left spaces where people were both felt unsafe and in fact were unsafe. So we're going to do physical changes, and we're going to program the parks in a way that encourages that positive activity, and we're going to consider things like the park rangers, like having parks personnel there assigned to a park on an ongoing basis, so there's a presence that makes people comfortable using it.
Before we go to our next emailer, Tony, have a message for Tony, who just called. If he can call back, we can get his contact information.
Please.
I don't think our call screener got that. So Tony, if you're listening, call back, please, and give that information. An emailer about recycling, the new recycling rules. If you haven't noticed yet, and who can't, because they've been all over the papers, the city is not picking up garbage if it has recyclables in it. And this gentleman asks, Mayor Nichols, the idea is noble but terribly flawed. Our paper recycling bin, he says, is always full. If you're going to enact such a strict policy, give us bigger containers.
Okay, we will consider that. One of the things we've done recently is we've given people the large yard waste, which also will be able to be used for food waste. And so they'll be able to reduce their trash by putting that into a system that we will compost it and reuse it. This has been a 3-year process. The first year was all about public education, what tools we've got available, and how you can do a better job. And residents across Seattle have done a great job. Businesses haven't done such a good job, and we're really working on that end of it. The second year was warnings. You know, you've got too much stuff that's recyclable, and please be aware of that. And now it's time for us to make it clear that if there is a preponderance of recyclables obvious in your garbage can, that just isn't the way we're going to operate from now on. We are destroying the environment by filling these landfills with stuff that could be reused or recycled.
Is there any proposal to get larger bins, double bins? Can someone call the utilities office and get something?
You can, I believe, have an additional bag that will take whatever the large 55-gallon bin doesn't take. And there's a system for being able to do that. If people want to know about that, the city's website, www.seattle.gov, or to call the Seattle Public Utilities, and we'll walk you through what you can do if you're recycling more than the 55 gallons each 2 weeks.
Up now to Ballard. Larry is on the line. Larry, welcome.
Yeah. How you doing?
Very good.
I'm curious about the graffiti around Seattle.
Yeah.
I have seen an increase of graffiti. I'm a native Seattle person,
okay,
and I've noticed a great deal of graffiti around the city. Sorry, that's my child. Graffiti seems to be out of control. If there's any budget for it, or
there is a budget for it,
and it just makes our city look bad.
Before, we'd like to know where you're seeing it. I'm seeing it as well. For instance,
on the freeways.
And I was just going to say, I've been noticing it more along I-5, and we're going to be talking with the State Department of Transportation about that. There seems to just be a general increase. I've also noticed it on rooftops. So when you're on the viaduct, for instance.
And I see it a lot in Fremont.
Yeah. If you would, 684-CITY, when you see it, let us know. If it's on public property, we can remove it. If it's on private property, we can let the private property owner know. And if they don't remove it, then we have some enforcement action that we can take. But it is an increasing problem, and it's something we need to get on top of.
A lot of questions about shelter space for the homeless, whether you're funding the same number of beds, whether you're not funding the same number of beds. Here was a recent op-ed piece in the Seattle Times from a person at the Archdiocesan Housing Authority, which is quite a well-respected provider of nonprofit housing. They say that their authority is a shelter, transitional, and permanent housing provider. 3 of our programs, this person writes, the Sacred Heart Shelter for Women and Families, the Noel Shelters for Women, and the St. Martin's Shelter for Older Men, recently lost $140,000 in funding from the city for next year. That seems like a net decrease in shelter space.
It may be that one agency has a decrease. We are going to fund the same number of shelter beds that we funded in the past, and we've actually increased the budget for that because we're asking for more services to be provided. We do not just want to provide a mat on a floor. We want to provide people with some ability to reconnect so we can figure out why they're at the shelter and how we can get them into a better situation in more permanent housing. So we go through a competitive process every few years, and we ask all of the different providers to give us their best offer on what they can provide, at what cost, and with what services. And then there's an evaluation of that, and those dollars go out the door and those services get provided. Over time, we are going to reduce the number of shelter beds, and we're going to replace them with beds in transitional housing that will have services that take those folks and get them reconnected to the community. We want to end homelessness. We don't want to keep triaging it. But that's just starting, and we haven't had an effect on the number of homeless yet. So as we transition people from homelessness into housing, over time we'll reduce shelter beds. Hasn't happened yet, so we're going to fund the same number of shelter beds that we did in the past.
And we can presume, therefore, that the $140,000 that this agency lost for shelter space, I don't know how much of that was literally shelter beds, but whatever fraction was,
we will
went somewhere else.
And more.
One more emailer here before we end tonight. Abandoned vehicles is the topic. Why does it take the city 2 weeks on average to respond to an abandoned vehicle? There's a car parked in my front yard, and it's been there for over a month, and the Seattle police have yet to do anything about it.
Well, there's one change in the law that occurred a few years ago that made it more difficult. Now, if it's on the street, as I understand it, it can be on the street for up to 72 hours. It used to be 24 hours. If a car was parked for 24 hours and didn't move, it could be ticketed and towed away, and now that's 72 hours. So that may be part of the answer, but it shouldn't take 2 weeks. If there's a clearly abandoned car, we ought to be able to respond more quickly than that. So I'd like to ask that person if they'd call our office, and I will and leave the message for me.
They will get a response?
Yes, they will.
Another emailer, it seems crazy to put a children's play area in Denny Park. Have you seen the number of homeless and drug dealers lurking around there lately? This just invites problems.
Well, that's sort of the flip side of the question we talked about earlier. We want Denny Park and every park to be a safe place for kids and all of the population of our city. We do not want it to become a place that becomes known as a drug dealing location. So it actually was the city council that put dollars in for children's play area. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know that there's even a plan for it yet, but they were responding to a couple people in the neighborhood who said it'd be a good idea. Generally, children's play areas in parks are a good idea, but the issue of safety and the perception of safety has got to be dealt with up front.
Because that's one of the problem downtown spots is Denny Park.
Well, there are a lot of the parks downtown have gotten that reputation. Freeway Park is an example I mentioned earlier where it actually isn't deserved. There was a halfway house that burned down, and after that halfway house went away, so did the crime. It went from 300 calls to 911 to 5 in a year. And so there was a problem. The problem's gone, but the perception remains. And we need to deal with both.
Lap dances. There's got to be a question on that each program, right?
Oh, great.
Susan writes, I had always assumed that a significant part of the rationale for the lap dance ban, which of course is what you pushed, was to limit the degree to which strip clubs can be places to solicit prostitution. I was disappointed to hear that this did not appear to be part of the rationale. Obviously, she's supportive of the lap dance ban, but wants to understand why that doesn't come out stronger, I guess, in your statements on it. Is prostitution one of the things you're trying to avoid?
Well,
or combat?
As I've said before, if we had a situation where we knew that there'd be only the 4 clubs that exist today and no more, there wouldn't be a proliferation, I would not have proposed the regulations that I did. Because we know the 4 clubs, we know the impacts, we think we can control that and manage that impact. But if we're going to have 55 clubs like Portland does, then that's a different situation. And a judge's ruling throughout the moratorium the city had that limited us to 4. So I don't want there to be an economic incentive that makes Seattle the place these clubs come as opposed to the jurisdictions around Seattle. They have an impact on the neighborhood. It's a negative impact, and I don't want more of them.
No doubt we'll have time to revisit that issue.
No doubt.
This year.
Although there are about 1,000 more important issues, I think, Sierra.
But this will be on the ballot, probably this fall. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
If you have a question for the mayor, go to our website, seattlechannel.org, and you can click on our talkback section, and we will read your question next month. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in February.